Um, so yeah, I mean, but everybody's different. Everybody starts this practice. I mean, when I joined the organisation called Zenways, there were people that had joined at the same time as me, some who have left and just gone off and done something completely different. There are some who have become Dharma teachers, Buddhist Dharma teachers, and have sort of absolutely just soared in their practice and everything. So, but we all find our own way of doing things at our own time. So it kind of doesn't really matter. But it's a naturally occurring question to ask, does it, how soon can it get, fully embedded? But you'll only find out by doing it. So, actually, should we just have a little sit for just a couple of minutes and just reconnect with being here, if that's okay. So just take up a comfortable upright posture without straining, or try to feel in and just sense that everything is balanced. You're not leaning to the left or the right. Your head's not lolling forwards or backwards, but everything is just nicely balanced. So if you imagine your ears above your shoulders, just allow the dust to settle. Allow yourself to arrive. You're noticing your physical body, the weight of your body, maybe the beating of your heart, and the breath gently going in and out. Without any sort of assessment, any judgment, let's just see if you can get a sense, without putting anything into words, just a sense of how your mind is right now. How agitated, or as they say, monkey mind it is, or how settled and calm, or anywhere in between. And then sensing into any emotional state you may be experiencing, however subtle or strong. And then just see if you can sense any correlation between your physical feelings or emotional feelings and your mental thought patterns. And then just returning to the breath. And when you're ready, gently lifting and opening your eyes. Thank you. So now we're all nice and calm. How did everybody get on over the last week? Yeah? Fantastic. You finding you're able to do it every day?
Yep. Yeah.
Fantastic. Brilliant. And did the practice, I know you were saying you prefer the lying down to sitting, but it's okay. And how are you finding I mean, presumably you're finding it different each day, but
It's been better than it has been
good.
not connected.
Do you find that during the course of the 25 minutes, things change at all, or your state of being at all? Yeah, things sort of, as I said, use that analogy of a glass of a sort of a fizzy glass of water, not fizzy, but one that's got turn on the cold tap and it comes gushing in and it's all bubbly, and then it takes a bit of time to settle down. But you can generally, for the most part, which is why I think we really go for sort of 25 minutes, is that the first sort of 10 or 15 minutes often find you feel like you're the cloudiness, and then there is a point at which you will often find that you suddenly become aware of being much clearer, much lighter, and it sort of settles into a different phase. You found that at all?
Yeah, some change.
Yeah, but that develops and changes over time as well. And your experience will be your experience. I'm not suggesting it's the same exactly as mine, but you may well find that things just sort of bed in a bit more at different stages. So, Karen, how do you get on?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I definitely find towards the last, I don't know how long it is, but it's definitely calmer. I've got a lot going on with some other stuff, so I have to battle with trying not to think about lots.
Yeah.
And I like the breathing, the slower breathing, and I do that a lot earlier than in your...
Oh, do it whatever pace is right for you,
I
yeah.
just counting in and out as one.
Okay.
I find that works better for me.
Whatever's great, yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Michelle?
Yeah, it's going well. I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by the light of things, lightness when you're meditating.
Okay.
I just feel, as I go deeper into it, I feel more relaxed.
Yeah.
And my limbs feel quite heavy.
Yeah.
I've had good sessions and bad sessions with it this week.
That's what you would expect.
Yeah.
And to be honest, to varying degrees, if you were to put your average week as being a bit like that, it will always probably be a bit like that. It's just, rather than being at this base level, as the months and years go on, it'll be like that. As in, you will always have good or bad days, but your practice will deepen and become better. So what I mean by lighter, and it's a very difficult thing because the state of your being, putting that into words is a very, very difficult thing to transmit to somebody. So when you say, feel more relaxed, a lot of it is what I suppose, referring to is, so it's a very common analogy to refer to the mind, the activities of the mind, as being a monkey mind. So you might start off in practice thinking, okay, all right, I'm settling down now. This is your inner dialogue, I'm settling down now, okay. I must remember, must remember to put the supper on this evening. Okay, now notice that thought, back to just counting. All my knees hurting. Things, inner dialogue is more likely to be, once it's stirred up in your daily life, it's more likely to keep going. It's a bit like a free wheel. If you bicycle downhill, it just keeps whirring. And it takes a time for most of us for that agitated mind activity to just kind of let go a bit, and the thoughts become more interspersed, lighter, and you can sort of, they don't carry you off on journeys so readily.
No,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I feel definitely brain's less active at the end of it.
Yeah.
I've got to tell you something funny. I do my meditation upstairs, which I do because I do it in the evening. And I said, I'll be down later to my daughter. And I've done my meditation and I just thought, I'm ready for bed. So I just literally tipped myself off into bed the chair and she went to sleep. And because I have trouble sleeping.
That's really good.
Yeah, so
Did you sleep the whole afternoon?
not the whole night through, but it's getting better. It's definitely
Good.
getting better.
Excellent, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
I picked up your blood pressure last week. I thought that was amazing. You say your blood pressure was much lower.
yeah, I'm monitored by the doctor, but I'm not on tablets because it sort of goes up and down quite a bit. But I've been taking, as well as doing the meditation, I always take my blood pressure quite regularly, so sometimes in the morning and then in the evening. But I was just absolutely shocked because I've been taking it before and after the meditation just to see if there is a difference. But even the one before, I had 114 over 70 and 56 pulse rate. So that's the diastolic, and yeah. And normally I'm averaging between, I don't normally go below 135 or 130. So I was quite shocked to get a reading of 114.
It's brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is so what I was sort of alluding to when we were sort of sensing in that little mini meditation is that our mind and our body and the emotions are all interwoven. I mean, you know, you only have to look into your own life experience to see the truth of that. So, you know, you calm the mind, the emotions get calmed, and the activity of the body becomes calmed. And as the body becomes calmer, that also makes the mind calmer. You know, we have these neural pathways in our body, and I can remember there's systolic and diastolic, and was that the blood pressure thing? I can't remember.
That's blood pressure.
Okay, it's not that then. It's I can't remember what they're called. But there's basically two different major sort of neural pathways that affect the way that we respond to danger and risk and so on. There's the vagus nerve and there's things like that. Anyway, I'm not a scientist, but the point is that the more you relax, the more that your breath becomes lighter and slower and deeper down in your belly, and the more it becomes abdominal breathing, or sort of diaphragmatic breathing, the more you rely on the diaphragm here to breathe, it sends positive signals to your brain that it's safe, which makes you relax more, which makes your breathing softer, which makes your brain think it's safe. So it's an absolute system is going into, not quite shutdown, but your whole system is saying, it's cool, everything's chilled, let it go, let it go, let it go. And it all feeds into that. Conversely, as we talked about with stress, you know, you panic, your heartbeat goes faster, you breathe short, sharp breaths high up in your chest, which sends a trigger to your brain that says, danger, 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 which makes your heart beat more. So, you know, awareness of these changes in our system, bringing conscious, deliberate awareness to how we feel, how our body is reacting, gives us that chance to make changes in how we respond to things, and therefore control our behaviour and how we feel. So a lot of what we've talked about with physical pain has been about, and did anybody have any sort of deliberate or accidental experiences of pain during the week, or anything where they tuned into it at all? No. Didn't I let you keep those elastic bands? Well, it's the principle is very much that the more you go into the experience, the more you actually directly you engage with the felt sensations that are occurring in physical pain, the more you become that pain, and the whole experience becomes very different than you looking at the pain to start with. You don't tend to create a dialogue about it because you're directly experiencing it. And there's an expression in Buddhism that says, the lotus flower blooms in the heart of the fire. which basically means that in that fiery moment of when, you know, where, do you remember I told you the story of Nobushige and Hakuin, the samurai who pulls the sword? In that, you think in the moment that Hakuin, the Zen master, turns to him and insults him, and Nobushige reaches for his sword and he's, that's the fire. That's that sort of emotional, woof, the adrenaline burst that goes through you, and which, if you don't catch it quickly enough, completely takes you on its journey. You know, you become angry and are carried with it. Once you're carried off in that whirlwind of emotion, it takes a long time to generally calm down. But it's in the awareness of it's, and the lotus flower is an expression of awareness. It's a symbol of awareness. So it's in that, the heart of that fire, in the moment of being the pain, right in the center of that experience, directly being what's happening, that the awakening of the lotus flower happens and you're like, I see. And it often usually doesn't come in the way of words. There's just this light bulb moment that is like, which is when he puts the sword back, as he realizes that he's lost in that moment and suddenly has become awake to the moment. So the more that we can connect with that in our physical experiences, the more we will be able to move away from the suffering that's connected with that. But anyway, today we're going to talk about emotional pain, because I think it's fair to say that our body doesn't have you know, all of the experiences of pain. Our emotions run havoc with us for most of the time in our lives, don't they? So I thought we'd have a look at that. And I printed these off because I think this is quite an interesting way of looking at. I will send you one, Agnes. Now, this is not exhaustive of all emotions that you could possibly think of, but I quite like it because it's a very good, easy way of seeing emotions in a different light. And so what you have is down the middle here, if you think of it as a left half and a right, left half and a right half, the emotions, and you've got two rings. So in very simple terms, if we were to look at the right hand half first, you've got this inner ring, which is basically pride, joy, intrigue, trusting, loving, peace. And each of those is then subdivided into 4 more subtle expressions of each of those emotions, if that makes sense. And all of the ones on that side are emotions that basically we experience when life is going the way that we kind of want it to go. Does that make sense? You know, that's what those are the emotions we kind of like. I'll have a bit more self-confidence. I want to be a bit happier, more assured, more affectionate, more content. Yeah, that's all lovely stuff. That's the stuff I want as much as I can grab hold of. The stuff on the other side, on the left side, is basically the feelings and emotions that we get when things aren't going our way. To a certain extent, things aren't going our way is because, and there are always, obviously, there are physical realities in life, I'm not denying that, but to a notable degree, things not going our way is because we have this inner narrative that says, I expect my life to be this. I expect to live to 85 years old, and I expect to be happy and content and have, you know, loving family. And these are the things subconsciously I have planned out for my life. And when I die, I want it to be pretty sudden. I'd like to have said goodbye to everybody that I want to, but I don't want to suffer at all. I want to kind of be told, oh, you've got another few days, say goodbye to everybody, and then peacefully you'll slip off in the night. However you may have it, we have this sort of thing that is like, yeah, I don't want anything bad to happen. I want it all to be good up until the last moment possible. And when that inner story that we have doesn't tie up with the reality of how we think it should, then those feelings start to arise. And what I think is quite interesting is there's two things. One is that if you look at this chart, it's color-coded. So you have, for example, the yellow things here, and opposite is yellow. And these are directly opposite emotions. You go straight across, diametrically opposite from one to the other. So depression is the opposite of, is experienced often as the opposite of gratitude. Or pain and hurt is excitement. Or but joy and sadness, basically expressions of joy and sadness. Sorry, I'm looking at it the wrong way around. Unhappy and grateful, maybe. Grief and sorrow, excited. Pain and hurt, ecstatic. Depressed, happy. But anyhow, they are basically opposite emotions. And we can move from these states towards the opposites from the other side. So you move from sadness to joy, or pride, shame, ashamed to proud, by seeing and accepting what is actually happening in each moment. And we're going to do that primarily not by thinking about it, but by feeling into it. So, if you were to imagine for a second that you were feeling really angry. We can probably all have some sense of what it feels like when we're angry, to imagine that feeling of being angry. No? Too blissful.
No, I was just thinking what happened today.
Okay, there you go, you see. Now you see that.
I did just chill from it. I had to get to Bromley, and my daughter was meant to come back home at 1 o'clock so I could get the car from the garage to get up to Bromley for a relative. And she didn't arrive, so I had to get a taxi, and then she arrived at the same time as the taxi, and yes, I was a happy bunny, so I chilled.
But thank you so much for that, Michelle, because that was exactly what was needed in the explanation. Things were meant to happen, and they didn't. Your story, your dialogue that you had expected, you may not have written it out, but certain things were expected to happen that didn't. And as a result, you got angry, or you felt anger. Now
I felt stressed more than angry.
Okay, but
yeah.
if you imagine that feeling of stress, or that feeling of, maybe not as quite as fiery as anger, but that story, when you tell that story, do you find as well that actually you can reconnect with the feeling of it as well?
Yes, yeah. But I'll be honest, I think in the past I would have got more angry about it than I did today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, good.
I think I tuned in to thinking, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Yes,
Yeah.
she's let me down, and yes, it cost me £21.60 in taxi fee to get to the garage.
Yeah.
But I just,
Yeah. So, but that's the thing, isn't it? That storyline that unfolds, because you're not getting, the storyline isn't leading you to an experience that you'd wanted, there is the potential for anger. Now, if you don't see that anger, if you don't see it for what it is, it can explode into an irritation that can last for hours. And even in the retelling of that dialogue of how things should have been, your mind and body are connected, and you can actually get a sense of what that feeling was like, an echo of it in your mind. So, in a way, that is what we're looking to consciously do with all of the emotional experiences we have. Now, again, just like with physical pain, what we're going to be doing is, what I'm going to be suggesting you do during the course of the next week, is really trying to be mindful of changes in your emotional state. Not analysing why they are a certain way or not. That just is more of the dialogue. We can all justify, the It's the sort of two little children. He hit me first, sort of thing. You know, we can all blame outer circumstances, and there may be validity in that, but that ain't going to solve the situation. The solving of emotional turmoil is by connecting with it. So, just as in last week when I used that image of saying that, you know, imagine there's a small child in the corner of the room right way over there, sitting down, sobbing away, and it's disturbing our conversation. And we're heartless and we just wanted to stop. And then we suddenly realize that actually, that by ignoring the child, it's just getting louder and it's not stopping at all. And we can't placate it in any other way. We can't rationalize with it. So we get up and we walk over to the child and try to find out what's going on. Now, as the child is listened to, I mean, as I think I used this analogy as well, I said, you know, as you get closer to the child may sound louder because you're closer to them. So emotional pain and physical pain can be experienced more intensely as you connect in with them. But it's by connecting into our emotions that we start to get to know them. So, like the child, all of these emotions are things that are actually not our enemy. You know, so if you have thoughts of anger, if you have thoughts of desire, oh God, if I could just afford that Porsche or whatever, or fears or compulsions or anything at all, any of those thoughts that are driving us, and they seem to be in control rather than us, we're not going to try and stop them, okay? Because that just builds a battle. You can't win against your own mind. In that sense, you can't go head to head in a battle. What you can do is start to listen, start to connect. And when I say listen, I don't mean listen with your ears. I mean listen in with your feelings, to become aware of. So, it is possible, even in a moment of terror, to have an awareness of, I am in a state of absolute terror, and this is what terror feels like. Because we all know that terror feels experientially very different to pride, or love, or anxiety, or fear. I mean, terror and fear are obviously very close to each other, but I mean, you know, they all have like different hues to them, just like, you know, in fact, that's sort of painted like a rainbow. All of these emotions have different qualities, and they can be known by communing with them, by feeling in to what they're like. Yeah? So that's what we're going to try and do, is we're going to start to try and listen in to why our emotions are making us feel a certain way. It's said that negative emotions, these ones when our needs aren't being met on the left-hand side, we have a natural tendency to ruminate over negative experiences, negative emotions, 5 times longer than positive ones, which is very much like, do you know that I'm sure you've experienced this, where, you know, you have a certain journey, and it's especially the case when you're in a rush, and it's like every bloody traffic light seems to be red.
Oh, yes.
Yes?
Yes. Always happens.
Yeah. But it doesn't actually. But the thing is,
Roadworks normally. They're all round East Grinstead.
but they're still divided up into equal amounts.
Every single road going out of our village.
But the point is that you don't notice the times when it's green, or if you notice, you quickly forget it. But the red becomes that tension. The next red, even more tension. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's sticky. I often think a way of thinking of these two halves of the emotional wheel, that's feelings wheel, is that the feelings that we don't, the feelings that we don't want, the ones on the left, tend to have more of an explosive quality. They tend to have more of a compression, more of a tension. Well, and if that tension becomes too much, they can be explosive. So like, sadness is often quite a sort of, head in hand. And obviously anger is boom. But there's a tension present in all those feelings. Love, kindness, gratitude, all have a much, in my experience anyway, have a much softer, more open, more blossoming, kind of embracing sort of feeling to them. That's my experience of how these things are. But I'm going to encourage you to start to explore and play with feeling into your emotions. Okay? So we're not going to ignore them, which is, normally what we choose to do is to either distract ourselves or deny that it's a problem or whatever. And instead we're going to, just as we did with physical pain, look at becoming those emotions. So when we feel into them, become that rage. Just feel in what it's like. Do you know, I had a moment where my son was, 7, let's say, 6, was very strong-willed. And I remember shouting at him. This is shame. Okay, I'm going to experience directly the feeling of shame right now. Shouting at him and smacking his backside. And it wasn't until after that the realization dawned on me, but how out of control I had been as an adult emotionally, because I felt that he wasn't doing what I wanted, that I was out of control emotionally, and how scarily uncomfortable and wrong that all felt, and how I really did not want to experience that feeling again, especially because of the fact that I was directing it to the person who I love most in the world. So connecting in with these things starts to give you the power to change your life from reactiveness to responsiveness, to conscious choice as to how to behave. That's not like it's a sudden light switch thing where you're going to suddenly feel into anger and you're never going to be angry again. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you start to turn the direction of travel that you're in. You start to become more aware, more sensitive, and able to control triggers for negative emotions, or when I say negative, but unwanted emotions, uncontrollable emotions, that you can tune into them much sooner and have more control about how they express themselves. So again, we're not trying to stop them. The stopping of an emotion like that, the stopping of anger, you can't use your willpower to stop anger. Anger kind of fizzles out when you see it for what it is. When you directly experience the feeling that is arising within you and going out of you. No feeling, you will also notice, is that no feeling stays with you. They all change, they all morph. So we often identify and attach ourselves, our identity, to a certain feeling. I am angry. It's like I am a state of anger. But anger is just a vibrational frequency that has been triggered and it is going through you. In, be it a minute, an hour, a day, it will have gone, and there'll be a different emotion. So we stop identifying with them, but we start to experience them directly. Does that make sense? Are you sure? Yeah? So we can't think about, you can think about it, you can you can listen to it and think, yes, I can understand that, that's fine. But this is not something that is about, you know, I mean, write it down as you have, which is great, but it's not about, okay, I've learned that as a fact. The learning of it comes through the experience of doing it. You know, it's the direct mental experience of engaging with your moment by moment life. All of these things are experienced in the here and now, in the present moment. Some of them may have their roots in the past. So, for example, depression, you might say, when we talk about the life not turning out the way we wanted, that storyline of, you know, you get stressed because you had a singular event that didn't go the way that was planned, caused stress. Now, if you have, or if you believe that there is a string of events happening to you and your life is just filled with disaster after disaster after disaster, just like the red traffic lights, if you allow yourself to ruminate over the negativity of everything 5 times more because it's negative, and that becomes your life experience. And I worked with somebody once who, every time I saw her, I'd say, how are you? Oh, well, I mean, you know, a friend of mine was in, I got a phone call last night, she was in Iceland and there was a volcano and, you know, my dog's about to die. And, you know, I mean, literally every day she would trail off a list of things that were going wrong in her life. Every day. I'm not exaggerating. It was just unbelievable.
We've got somebody at work like that.
Yeah. And it's a real sadness, but it becomes a pattern. And that is a form of depression, because it's like you have decided that your life story, that has basically crumbled to dust. What you'd wanted your life to be is nothing, and all the energy has gone out of your purpose or belief in anything worthwhile in life, when it's just like, I don't know, what the hell's the point? I mean, I'm not saying that's all of depression, but I'm saying that depression can have a quality of that about it. Similarly, we might project into the future all sorts of things. I mean, and I find myself doing this. I check myself with this with American politics. I keep thinking, this is very serious what's going to happen with the election in America in a few months' time. Now, the reality is I have no control over it all. I didn't even have a singular vote. I don't know what is going to happen in the course of this year or even in the years afterwards. So it's all my imagination. It may have some foundations of logic to it, but, you know, I don't know what's going to happen when I walk out to my car at the end of this session, let alone what's going to happen in 6 months' time, 8 months' time. So projecting possible futures brings anxiety, you know, fear. What if? Can I control this? Can I somehow stop this happening? And of course you can't. There's absolutely no way. In fact, the only thing we know with pretty much absolute certainty is that at some point we're going to die. That's about the only thing we know. We've got no idea between now and then anything that's going to unfold. But we worry about the possibilities. What if this? What if that? If I could just control that, just change that. And that dialogue, just like the dialogue that led to stress with the car thing, with the taxi, you know, it wouldn't have helped. Being stressed does, you know, what has happened has happened. You can choose to either accept that that's what's happened and at least not have the emotional baggage, or you get picked up and carried along in a mental and emotional storm of, why does this always happen to me, sort of thing. Yeah? Mm. And if you learn to feel into those experiences, to wake up. So if you remember, mindfulness is deliberately choosing to be present and aware in the moment, but without judgment. So, you know, the judgment, if you think of almost all judgment is inner dialogue. Yeah? So, God, I'm just, you know, that wasn't fair, that shouldn't have happened to me, type of
To
thing.
be honest, I think in the past I probably would have blown up at my daughter,
Yeah.
but I didn't.
Okay.
And I didn't this evening, no. I
Um,
came home this evening.
And do you think it would have helped if you had?
No.
But it would have made things worse, almost certainly, because she'd have then got upset, and it would have continued for much, much longer,
Yeah.
and it would have led to other things. So, yeah. I mean, that's not to say that there isn't possibly a time when well-considered, controlled, anger is quite a strong word, but, for example, an unruly child, there will be times when you deliberately, consciously, knowingly choose to speak firmly, because that is what's required in the moment. But the question is, if you're feeling in, do you know that you are in control moment by moment of what you're saying? Or are you being carried along by an emotion? Yeah? So there are times for being light and playful, there are times for being serious, and that's skillfulness in action. But emotions play their part. You know, they're there for a reason. We just need to listen in and choose to have a relationship with them where we are the master of our emotions, gradually more and more and more, and less that they run havoc in our lives, run amok. So, the two fundamental principles, which I have mentioned before, I'm sure, of meditation and a mindful approach to life is awareness and, start for 10, the second one is awareness and acceptance. So acceptance being pretty much the opposite of judgment. So you're aware of an emotion arising. You're aware of a trigger, first of all, actually. So you'll probably become aware. So that's where we've been practicing with stress, with triggers that are regular. So the shoes in the hall, something you can easily recognize. You make a mental bridge, that is something that causes me stress. So you familiarize yourself with that trigger. The more you become familiar with a trigger, that leads you to become familiar with the idea that there are triggers that make you and you start spotting them more in your life. The more you practice, the more you will see other things that trigger your emotions. And then we're training, like at the gym, to see how much sooner we spot those, how much quicker we become aware of the felt sensations or of the thought pattern arising that's going to lead us to being out of control. Does that make sense? You sure? You look as if you're a little bit sort of,
Yeah, but yes, no.
There you go, exactly. Is it yes, no?
Well, I suppose it's well, I don't know how to articulate it. I mean, it's accepting. You're saying that becoming aware and accepting things, but you can't accept. No, not everything in life is alright. Not everything in life is acceptable. Not every behaviour is acceptable.
Sure.
So it's that sometimes actually, yes, it's not acceptable for a child to behave in a certain manner, or speak
Sure.
in a certain manner, and they have to be brought up and explained to them, no, actually that's not acceptable.
Absolutely.
So you can't just go through life floating and accepting absolutely.
We're not saying, so this is where you're going to be this is why I was about to come on to more detail with acceptance, because acceptance does not mean that you're going to become a doormat in life. Acceptance is that it's an inner state within you that what has happened has happened. You cannot change what has just happened. You cannot change the child who's turned around to you and said, F off. It's already happened. So if you're linking that trigger with a behavioural response that you have, that you're not in control of, there is no acceptance that what has happened has happened. Now, the skillful thing is that you see the reality of what's happened. You see, first of all, that that's a trigger. So you take a moment's pause. And in that moment of pause that gives you a chance to be fully aware, you see the reality that skillfulness is going to be required to actually make that scenario end up properly. If you turn around to the child and say, F off yourself,
That'd be interesting.
that ain't good. Or clip, you know. So you being in control is not, it's accepting in your inner world that this has happened. And from a place of stillness and calm presence, choosing the appropriate way to respond to that will skillfully lead to the end of that behavior, hopefully, if not immediately, long term. Do you know, I am firmly of the belief that as much as in my son's early life, before I was doing all of this, I took the adopted parental training of, you know, basically not quite be seen and not heard as the Victorians would have, but, you know, that I'm in charge, I tell you what's what, and you damn well do what I say, which never really seemed to work. And in later years, I have decided that the best way I can teach my son is by example. So when he is rude to me, as he is every now and again, and I'm not claiming to be perfect at this, but I am so much better at this than I used to be, I will go, Jamie, that is not a kind thing to say. Why do you feel that you need to say that? Because if I can exhibit a skillful handling of my own emotions, then he's learning by osmosis. Yeah? So that's what I'm trying to say. If I can accept that he's said it, and actually, the thing is, he's saying it to hurt me, but it's about him feeling hurt, and he's projecting that hurt out. And if I accept that hurt and go, then he's sort of succeeded in his goal, but he's not happy and I'm not happy. Do you know what I mean? So we're trying to calm things down. We're trying to live in peace and harmony, man. But as you feel into peace and harmony, you'll see it's a lot nicer place to live most of the time than anger and irritation. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to feel into that more. So don't be a doormat, but be in control. So there's those trigger points that we talked about with stress. It's just the same. It's that trigger point. The sooner you become aware of that trigger, something making you, no, okay, what's happening here? What's happening here? Let's calm down before you get whipped up in the storm. The more you can notice that trigger point, you change it from being a point of outburst to being a point where you're no longer unconsciously reacting, you are choosing to consciously respond. The response is one that is considered through appropriate action, and you can only act skillfully when your emotions are steady. Even what we think of as lovely emotions like love, you don't make rational decisions. I mean, how many people, especially in the first flushes of love, make rational decisions? You don't, do you? You're still caught up in the of it. It just feels a lot more expansive. Has any of you heard of the 13th century Sufi poet called Rumi? R-U-M-I. You have? Oh. I was sure for a second there. I had a fellow traveller on 13th century Sufi poet. Oh, so will you tell us? He did a poem. So he was a mystic. He had a very insightful mind. And there's a poem called The Guest House. And so this is symbolic, okay? It's the symbolic of the state of our being in how we react to the things that come across us and come into our world, okay? So, The Guest House, it's called. The guest house is us. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honourably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So, does that make sense? The essence of that? You know, it's all about engaging with life in direct experience, and that is how we start to become the masters or mistresses of our own destiny. You know, the life is not going to take us and drag us. There's a Zen quote that says, let go or be dragged. So let go of all the baggage, all the things you think should happen, of all the storylines that you think your life should be, of how your husband shouldn't leave his shoes in the hallway, or your daughter should have made different arrangements so you didn't have to get a taxi, or whatever. You know, you let go of all of those should-bes and allow life to happen how it happens. And you just become life. You start to live your life as a part of life, rather than constantly battling against the things that you have no control over. Does that make sense? But just as with physical pain, do be compassionate with yourself. I am not suggesting that if the first thing that happens is tomorrow is your cat dies or something, and you're in deepest sadness because of it, that's the time that you should start practicing emotional awareness. It might be a bit too much, but there are simple little things in life where things just don't quite go, let's say irritations, little things that niggle at you. Start with those. As they say, don't learn to surf in 60-foot waves. Start with the small stuff. Start with easy stuff. Niggling things. Just gradually become aware of them. The niggling things don't happen quite so explosively.
Become aware, but you're not actually saying that you want us to actually refocus the mind on a positive of it.
No, that'll happen on its own.
Right.
So, well, the change starts to happen on its own. The amazing thing about the human psyche is that as you shine the light of awareness on whatever's happening in your life, however it's unfolding, and you directly experience what that is, you know, for example, that fieriness of anger is not a comfortable feeling. Is it?
No.
It's not one, you don't want to go through life angry. I mean, I don't. Well, I certainly don't. If you do, then let's think of another emotion that maybe suits you better. But I don't think you do. Most of us want to be happy, not angry. So that vibrational frequency of anger, is a very uncomfortable thing to have. All you need to do is become aware directly of what that feels like. Not afterwards, not thinking, oh yeah, I didn't really like that. Knowing the feeling. Being aware that your heart is pumping faster, that you might be clenching your fists. You know, those sort of things. But even so, you're not writing a list, you're feeling into what it is. Just so we started the practice of this course, lying down, moving your awareness around your body. You know that you can, when you think of the crown of your head, when you move your awareness to the crown of your head, it has a different sensational experience than when you move your awareness to the weight of your body on your chair. Yeah? They feel different. This is just the same thing. You're feeling in to how an emotion exhibits itself in your experience. You're not analysing it, You're not trying to stop it. You're not trying to direct it. You're just paying attention. And the rest will start to take care of itself. If you allow it to. So that's the acceptance bit. So there's another thing, another expansion of the idea of acceptance and awareness that I'll give you, if I can get these pens to work, that is called RAIN. So each of those stands for different things. So this is the sort of process of becoming aware of things arising in your experience. Okay. So the first one is, if I remember correctly, you recognise that an emotion's arising. It's just a simple recognition. And that's why the more you practice these things, and that's why you're starting with something like choosing the hall. I'm sorry I keep mentioning it, but it's just that it's a good one, it's a useful one. But you become more and more and more familiar with that as a trigger. So when it happens, it's not a surprise. It's like, okay. So recognizing something is the first thing. The more you recognize that there are triggers in your life, the easier it is to start to take control of it. Okay? Allow. So allow yourself to, or accept that this is what is happening. Yeah? The shoes are there. I'm allowing it to happen. I'm allowing myself to be aware of my experience. Then we go a little step further. And we investigate. So recognizing is like that makes a mental trigger, really. I see the shoes, that's what gets me. I allow myself to be aware of the fact that this is happening, but I then choose to investigate. So it's like investigating, not the shoes. You're not going to pick up the shoes and look at investigate, how is this making me feel? This emotion is arising, what does it feel like? So you're allowing the irritation to arise, but you're not allowing it to take over you. Yeah? This is what is happening. What does it feel like? And then the last one is non-identification. So rather than I am angry, I am irritated, you basically, in seeing that the experience, the emotion, has arisen because of the trigger, you're basically starting to actually directly experience the truth of what is happening in front of you. The truth you are seeing is that that is a trigger for me. I'm now feeling that there are emotions arising. How does that feel for me? And then I'm starting to realise that those feelings weren't there before, that they will disappear in the future, and that they are feelings that are going through me. So I am not angry, I am not irritated. There is irritation that has been triggered because of my dialogue, my inner thought process, that is passing through me. And in recognising that that's happening, your mind kind of goes, oh yeah, and let it go. Rather than, I keep telling him, what does he keep doing? Which is, so easily done. So it's a change of patterns. There's,
Still doesn't get shoes in the
no. But you...
I told you what to do on those. You hide them.
And the lovely thing about this is that, but if you also think, well, maybe he'll start to see that it's nicer to do that you help him out with things, and he'll start to think, actually, do you know what? Karen keeps putting my shoes away for me. Maybe I'll build a shed or something. I don't know. You're right. It's another dialogue. It's more inner dialogue, isn't it? Now, I'm going to test you again, Ben. This time it's not a 13th century Sufi poet. This is a early to mid 20th century world leader, Gandhi. You know of Gandhi, or are you playing with me again? So Mahatma Gandhi said, and I just like this because this is about what I'm saying about the shoes, what I'm saying about me changing my attitude to how I relate with my son. And he said, as a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. And it's true. It takes time, but the more that you become a person that is calm, in control, at ease, happy, allowing, the more your life becomes pleasant, and the more that other people see that in you and seek your presence, your company, your guidance, your support, and the more you willingly give it. And your life becomes richer and more beautiful. So it's I'm only at the beginning of that sort of journey, but it is one that I can definitely say I've experienced is true. You start to live a life that is more comfortable, more at ease, less battling with everything that comes along. That my wife told me about I'm always a bit cautious about overly generalizing with things, but she said that there's this saying that there are two types of people in the world. And using plumbing analogy, it's that there are radiators and drains. And there are people who radiate energy, who give off, who share, who have positive attitude. And there are people who you just avoid like the plague, because every time you see them, they're like, oh, I suppose I'm all right. Yeah, things were better last week, but yeah, weren't very good then either. Do you know what I mean? And you feel your own energy going woof down the drain. So the more that you are exhibiting all those positive things in life, where you are just at one with life, more other people will be like, yeah, do you know what? Ben, Karen, Michelle, they're great people to spend time with. I want to be like Ben. I want to be somebody who's actually, got life sussed. It's a process. But you have chosen to come on this course to take control of your life. So you are. I'm at my own different stage of my journey, but I'm not at the stage that my Zen master is at. That's fine. He's living his journey, I'm living mine. The main thing is we're on a journey of actually engaging with life and exploring it and making it as the best we can possibly be, And I think that's, what else are we going to do with our lives? Going to be miserable and be at the whims of events destroying our lives? That's not to say that some things won't take us and whip us up like a storm. But the more we learn to deal with the small stuff, the bigger stuff becomes easier. How are we doing? We should probably do a meditation, really, shouldn't we? Are there any questions?
Yeah, with no identification, I'm just wondering I didn't quite catch.
So you don't really need to do anything. You will just start to realize that you aren't the emotion. As you feel into the experience of what that emotion is, and you feel that it changes, that it passes through you, you will no longer identify that you are the anger. The anger is just happening. You allow it to express itself, you allow it to pass on, but you don't get caught up in it. And as you train yourself to, because you can't bottle it, But if you see it, as you start to engage with it and experience it, it already starts to lose its power over you. That's what I'm saying. Awareness is an amazing thing. You're listening in to the, so that if you think of that child at the end of the room, you're listening into that child, that anger, that jealousy, that whatever it is that's arising. You're not being picked up and carried by it, you're listening and you're going, why is that you're doing that? But you're not doing it intellectually, you're just connecting in. That's what's actually happening right now. How does that feel? What is that? What's that like? And as you start to feel into it, you can start to let go. You can start to see that it's a triggered response or reaction within you. And it's not you. And as you realize it's not you, it just goes. But it's a process. Any other questions? But the thing is with all of this, as I say, I'm not asking you to believe that this is true. I'm asking you to investigate yourselves in your moment-to-moment experience. Because this only becomes real for you when you engage with it in your experiences. Me telling you it's just like a finger post saying, head this way. If you don't head that way, if you don't try it out, you won't know. If you do try it out, you might start to experience the truth of it. Okay. Is everybody... So you haven't done your meditation yet today, obviously, because you do it in the evening, Michelle. Is this your second today? Or yeah, excellent. Have you left space in your journals to write any notes on it? Don't have to, just wondered.
I think I just got good this morning. I don't have anything else to say, really. Did you write a lot?
I actually left mine at home, so I've done it for 2 days, but I've done it.
Oh, you didn't.
That's the most important thing. Yeah. Okay. I will stop the recording now because Michelle's got access